so scientific revolution is the expansion of knowledge in science due to the Crusades and the knowledge being brought back to Europe. So it's a series of events that leads to the birth of modern science, and you have more emphasis on observation and logical reasoning and explanations for how the world works, not just what the Bible says. Okay? So people start to explore the natural environment. This is why they were robbing newly buried poor people so they could dissect their bodies, so that they could discover how the human body works. It's all about observation. Okay? Leonardo da Vinci was probably the Renaissance man, meaning he could do a little bit of everything. He achieved excellence in lots of areas, which is why he's termed a Renaissance man. So if you ever hear anybody they're a Renaissance man, that means they can do a whole lot of stuff. Okay? Wide variety of stuff. He was a painter, a sculptor, an architect, a scientist, an engineer, and an inventor. And his most famous painting probably is The Last Supper, which you see up there. I know you guys have all seen that. Yeah, a lot of people have a reproduction of this. This was a painting done on the wall of it's either a monastery or a nunnery.
A nunnery?
Yeah, where nuns hang out. Like the female version of a monk.
That's fun.
And he painted the whole wall. So the painting itself is probably as big as the back wall of my classroom, maybe a little bit bigger.
Nuns are scary.
And because he's an inventor, he's always experimenting with stuff. So he mixed oil paint with tempera, which is like what happens when you mix oil and water together. What happens, Gabe?
Is it like how the characters in Violet in the background?
No. I'm talking about the composition of the paint.
Oh.
Cause problems with the painting. What happens when you put oil and water together? They separate. Okay, so he mixed oil-based paint, with tempera, which is a water-based paint, because he was experimenting, and he painted the whole thing with that. And since he finished, it's been trying to come apart because oil and water separate. So they do conservation on it all the time. Can you see where he used linear perspective?
Yeah, on the windows on the back.
Okay, in the ceiling. Follow the lines. What does the architecture and the linear lines in the ceiling point toward? Jesus. And the window makes kind of a halo. That's not by accident. Okay, all of that's planned out.
Whoa.
This is his drawing from his journal. I told you guys yesterday he kept a journal, but he wrote it in code. So it's in Latin, backwards, and you had to hold it up to a mirror to read it, because he didn't want people stealing his ideas. So he has everything from notations and drawings he made while he was dissecting human bodies to figure out how they work, to designing war weapons. This is the first tank. He also invented the first parachute, the first flying machine, first machine gun, all kinds of stuff. Yes?
The machine guns is actually bullets. Like
Yes.
we know. Okay.
Because they had gunpowder now because of the Crusades.
It looks like a UFO.
It does kind of look like a UFO. All right, with an increase, because of the Crusades, you have an increase in trade with Asia, China, India. They want silk and spices. How did we get silk? We talked about it yesterday.
Silkworms.
Worms. And Italians are making tons of money off of this because they are like the entry point to Europe. So the Italians get wealthy off of this trade. And then they sell this stuff to the rest of Europe. And European countries like England are tired of paying the Italians inflated prices when they could get better prices if they did it themselves.
Kind of like us paying Biden for gas.
Okay, so they want to break the Italians' hold on trade, and about the same time, the Muslims start taking over and cut off the Silk Road. Okay, so we need new trade routes. What is that going to lead to?
War.
Yeah, you're going to take to boats, right? You're going to take to the ocean. The age of exploration, Christopher Columbus and all that. That's what fueled that. They were looking for a way by water to get to India and China. They didn't know the Americas existed, and they ran into them. That's how they discovered them. They're looking for a northwest passage to India. All right, in literature, you have William Shakespeare. How many of you guys have heard of Shakespeare? Romeo and Juliet, okay, Julius Caesar, Et tu, Brute, all that fun stuff. He wrote poetry and plays all about human nature. Most of his characters are flawed and make a fatal mistake. Okay? And then they have to deal with the consequences. Sometimes they're comedies where he pokes fun at human nature. Like one of them, All About Nothing, is all about how gossip can cause people to behave in certain ways. Okay, so gossip is not anything new. The printing press is what makes the Renaissance happen all across the globe. It even comes to America because colonists are coming to America. So when they bring Renaissance ideas with them. Okay. So the printing press is kind of like the internet of its age. These are the trade routes and all the exploration that leads to trying to find that northwest passage. So where they want to go is India and China because they got the cool stuff. China has paper, China has gunpowder, China has silkworms, India has spices. Okay, so those are the desirable products to sell back in Europe because they don't have that cool stuff. So the way that you had to go was all the way around Africa. We still have, even in our modern age, ships that sink in this area because the waters are so unstable. And how long is it going to take you to go in a boat that doesn't have an engine and you have to rely on the wind? Years. Didn't take you a while, right? So they know, because they've explored, what is going, like that they can get there by not going overland. So they can bypass the Italians and get it cheaper if you survive the journey. It's just going to take a while. Okay? So Magellan sets out in 1522, and he's the first guy to circumnavigate the globe. He sails all the way around. Okay, Christopher Columbus actually made 4 voyages. When he landed in the Caribbean, he thought he was in India, and that's why he called the people Indians. And that's why Native Americans are called Indians, when it's really not India. Okay? And that leads to colonization of the Americas by the British, and that's how you become the 13 colonies and the rest of American history. Okay? All because they're looking for a faster way to trade all the cool stuff coming out of Asia. Science, they have access now to some of these ancient works, so they rediscover the fact that, oh wow, the earth is round. It is? It is. It's not flat like they were being told. You can't sail off the edge of the earth, okay?
Why not?
Because the edge is not there.
That's no fun.
Okay, I know, run that time. They discover, because of the telescope, that everything doesn't revolve around the earth, everything revolves around the sun. So all of this is a challenge to church teaching. So you're going to have a battle between religion and science that's still going on. Okay? So for the first time in centuries, Europeans can read about Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, who else? Hippocratic Oath. Do you guys know what the Hippocratic Oath is?
No.
Hippocratic Oath is the oath that doctors take, that they will treat people nicely. That comes from ancient Greece. People started studying math. You can thank the Crusades and the Arabic people for your algebra, because they're the ones who came up with it, and the Crusades is how we got it.
What the heck? Are they on crack? Why did they make that?
Mm-hmm. Arabs stole some of their stuff. Geometry, all of that, the really good stuff was preserved. The Greeks came up with it, the Romans came up with it, and then the Arabs preserved it, and then the Crusades brought it back to Europe. And it leads to new inventions and new techniques. All right, the Reformation is part of this Renaissance too, because now that more people can read, and they can read in their native language, the vernacular, they start to question what the Roman Catholic Church is teaching. And the guy that gets the whole ball rolling is Martin Luther. Martin Luther was a monk who taught at a university in what is today Germany, and he taught the Bible. And when you teach something, you know a whole lot about it, right? Because you have to study it in order to teach it. So what happens is, in 1517, he finds 95 things he doesn't agree with. He finds discrepancies between what the church is teaching and what the Bible actually says. Okay? So he makes a list, because this is how you make announcements in the time. He wrote down his 95 things and why he thinks they're wrong, and he nails it to the church door. Did that make him a really popular guy?
No, because then you read.
No, yeah, because now he has to hide because there's a price on his head for the whole rest of his life.
Oh my gosh.
Because he challenged the church.
How much were they charging for that?
Oh, I don't remember the price. But you got lots of people looking for him, trying to kill him. He starts what is called the Reformation. So you have the beginning of denominationalism. New churches are going to form that break off from the Catholic Church and have a new idea of how you're supposed to worship God and what the Bible really means. Okay? So Luther's followers form their own church and they become the first Protestants. So now you have two versions of Christianity. Protestantism and Catholicism. Okay, so Christians broke away from the Catholic Church over religious issues. The main issue they had with the Catholic Church at the time was the sale of indulgences. Do you guys know what an indulgence is? No. Okay, so according to Catholic teachings at the time, when you died, you went to purgatory. And you spent so much time in purgatory before judgment. Okay, purgatory might not necessarily be a good place, depending on, kind of how you behave. So, an indulgence was a way to buy time out of purgatory. So you give the church money, you commit a sin, you give the church, you repent, you go to confession, you do the whole confession thing, okay? You repent, you slip the priest and the church some money, and that's going to buy you time out of purgatory.
Wait.
Okay? Well, if you can't read, and you only know what you're told, does this seem like a logical practice? Yeah. Who's making money off of this?
Church.
The church, big time. So Martin Luther sees that as a corruption in the church, and he wants it fixed. And that's the main of the 95 that he fights over, that people want to kill him over. Okay, so now you have new churches forming with new ideas, breaking away from the Catholic Church, and you're going to have wars between Christians where Christians kill each other over who's right. For a long time. Okay? So another one that follows in the steps of Martin Luther is John Calvin, and he establishes the Calvinism church. And Henry VIII, because he wants a divorce, establishes the Anglican or Episcopal church. Because the Pope won't give him a divorce. He wants a divorce. The Pope says no. He says, okay, I'll make my own church, put myself at the head, and guess what? You can have a divorce. Okay, so the Catholic Church decides, okay, yeah, all these people are mad at us. They're all breaking away from us. Maybe we got a few issues. So we'll reform ourselves. So a lot of the Catholics, so it's like, okay, so we got to fix a few of these problems. So they start focusing more on spiritual concerns, less on politics. They start to work to make church teaching easier for people to understand. So instead of everything being in Latin, now you can listen to the priest in your native language. French, English, whatever. They sent priests and teachers all over Europe to spread Catholicism, and they worked to spread Catholicism all throughout the exploration. So every time an explorer like Columbus would head out to explore, they took a priest with them. If you were a Catholic nation, your explorers took priests with you. Why? So you can convert the people you conquer. The people you encounter, whether they want to be converted or not. Okay? England is going to do the same thing, only it's going to be Protestants that they try to spread. So it's like a race in technology and acquisition acquisition of land to make colonies and to spread your version of Christianity. And it will cause wars because they're competing over markets, land, and religion. Money, land, and religion are the three main reasons people fight. All right, tension starts to grow between religion and science, which still exists today, right? There's still a debate over whether or not you guys should be learning about the theory of evolution or not. Okay? Katie, sit up. In 1632, Galileo published a book in which he stated the Earth orbited the sun, and he gets placed under house arrest for it. Because the church taught that the Earth was the center and everything revolved around it. So he was going against church teachings, so they arrested him, put him on trial, and he spent a pretty good portion of his life in house arrest. And he was afraid for his life, so he finally wrote a retraction. Oh, sorry guys, I was wrong.
And they still got them in the house.
Yeah. Incidentally, just a little side story, after he died, somebody dug up his body and stole his finger. Why? Like his little bony finger. And it traveled around in private collections for a while. Like different people owned Galileo's finger. Why? Because people are weird. I don't know. All right, so you also have astronomers discovering how the stars and the planets move, so the beginning of physics and astronomy. Biologists learned how blood circulates through the human body. I don't even want to think about how they did that. Okay. Physicists figured out how mirrors and pendulums work. So you have lots of advances. So people start to, it ties right into that humanism we talked about yesterday, where it's all about what you can do in the here and now and the accomplishments people can have, not just about you better live a good life or you're going to go to hell, like during the Middle Ages. All right, and then you have Sir Isaac Newton, who discovers gravity. How do you discover gravity? An apple fell on his head, supposedly. Okay. Then you have this whole voyages of discovery. They're able to sail around the world, like Magellan is able to sail around the world because technology had advanced. Okay? They have better ships that they learned from the Arabs, basically. You have new compasses that are more accurate. You have astrolabes, which is what this center image is. An astrolabe is how you determine where you're at on the globe, using the horizon and the position of a star. Improved cartography. What's cartography?
Map making.
Correct. Map making. New ships like the Caravel, which is what Columbus sailed in, made sea travel safer and faster. Okay? So they're able to travel farther, to look at more stuff. And if they're going because, let's face it, human beings are curious, right? We want to know. Why else would you want to go to Mars?
Except for my cousin. He's just stupid.
All right, and they want adventure and excitement. People are always going to be thrill seekers. You're always going to have those adrenaline junkies that climb Mount Everest just because it's there, okay? Even though it can kill you. Some of them are inspired to spread their version of Christianity, whether it's Protestant or Catholic. That's what motivates them. Some of them want money, raw materials. The more raw materials you have, for example, gold mines, okay, makes you more wealthy. And they're looking for a Northwest Passage, which doesn't exist. Okay? Do what? We did make one. It's the Panama Canal. I mean, seriously, there's not a Northwest Passage. So we made one in the early 1900s, which is the Panama Canal. All right, and voyages to America in 1492, Columbus sails for Spain. Is he Spanish? No, he's Portuguese. And he thinks he's in Asia, so he calls them Indians. It leads to new discoveries of the Americas, which leads to colonization, the conquering of the Aztecs in Mexico, and the false assumption that all Native Americans have lots of gold. People sailed around the world. Magellan, who was also Portuguese, sailed for Spain, around the South America into the Pacific Ocean. He made it as far as the Philippines, and then he gets killed by natives on an island. And his crew makes the trip back because he dies. So Magellan actually did not circumnavigate the globe. His crew did because he dies along the way. It's important because later explorers are going to kind of follow his path and find new trade routes. So the world is going to start to become smaller. Here's where Magellan was killed. All right, new empires are formed. So once we find the Americas, the Europeans find the Americas, they got to take over them because, that's just what they do. So everything you see in green up there is Spanish territory. At one time, we were Spanish. We were part of Mexico. Okay, and the Portuguese, look at how much territory they have. The Dutch, the French. That's why parts of Canada speak French. The Russians in Alaska. How did the United States get Alaska? Yeah, we bought it from Russia. All right, so the Spanish come in. They're the first to reach the Americas. They're the first to claim land in the Americas. One of the oldest settlements in North America is St. Augustine, Florida. That it was established by the Spanish during this time period. And that they are able to take over big empires like the Aztecs and the Incas because they have technology that the natives do not. And they have diseases that the natives have never been exposed to before, like chickenpox, and it killed them by the millions. Yeah, they also had horses. Horses didn't exist in the Americas until the Spanish brought them. Of course, they didn't have potatoes either because potatoes came from the New World. All right, so the Spanish want gold and silver because, that's what makes you rich, so that's what they want. And when they take over the Aztecs and the Incas, who had lots of gold, they are under the false assumption that all Native Americans have gold. So Coronado actually left Mexico and came through Roger Mills County looking for gold, the 7 cities of gold. Because the journals written by some of his men talk about the Antelope Hills. The Spanish enslaved the natives and made them work in the gold mines. A lot of them died because of the diseases. The Spanish also are the ones who brought the African slaves to the Americas first. And the riches from the Americas allowed the Spanish to build up their army and their navy, and they, for a time, are a superpower. Until the gold runs out, basically. Other colonies, countries colonized in the Americas, some lived peacefully, like the French. The French married into the tribes and lived with the tribes because they wanted the fur trade. And the Native Americans know where the fur animals are, so we're going to be buddies because we make money off of it.
I saw a thing where they would trade like things to marry one of the Indians.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you purchased your wife.
Yeah.
That's not uncommon. Lots of cultures do that. Some of them live peacefully, others not so peacefully, like the British coming in and establishing the 13 colonies didn't get along with the natives very well, right? Because we wanted the land and we wanted the farm. So it all depends on what you want as to how well you go along with the native population. Resources that were found here were then taken back to Europe and become popular. Tobacco, potatoes, tomatoes, corn. You can thank Native Americans for chocolate. You can thank Native Americans for popcorn. Okay? A lot of stuff that existed here that didn't exist in Europe. So when you hear about the Irish potato famine, it's not because the Irish already have potatoes. It's because explorers brought potatoes back to Ireland and they grew well in their climate, and that's what the poor people lived off of. And then when they got a disease that caused them to rot from the inside, the poor people didn't have anything to eat, and so you had famine. And that's when a lot of Irish immigrants came to the United States. All right. This is not the right link. Why did it do this? Okay, I'm going to have to send this to you in a different way. Will it let you log in?
Yeah.
Okay, log in under your account then. And we'll see if it'll let you take the quiz. I haven't ever done it.
It's already under our account. It's already on there.
Okay. It just looked weird because my name was up there. All right, so take your quiz.